Hello, Joe Simhart here again for another installment of Cults in the Alt Culture. The topic today is about the way that a cult leader or an influencer can get our brains to recognize a pattern when there is not one there, or to use a pattern in our brains to manipulate us to do something else. The painting here looks like a turtle, and it's called turtle bug because the pattern on the shell of the turtle is like the pattern on a ladybug. Now, our brains flip back and forth when we see this pattern, but it's self-explanatory. I've combined two notions that are within our brains that we have to figure out. So in a sense, it's comical. It surprises us. It's funny. Part of the construction of jokes is to surprise us with the unexpected, and we laugh because we're surprised or impressed or whatever. One of the books I'm going to be referring to here is this book by Kathleen Taylor. It came out in 2004 called Brainwashing, The Science of Thought Control. And this is a big topic. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I want to bring up a couple things about how we can be manipulated through pattern recognition that's very primal to us. For instance, in ancient times, the cave cultures had to be able to recognize sounds and smells and noises and patterns around them to see if there was a predator or perhaps prey close by in order to survive. So we'll get to this point here. Kathleen Taylor has a part 2 in her book called The Traitor in Our Skull. And in here, she's trying to explain how our brains can work to fool us and also perhaps to allow someone that's a predator to manipulate us, a cult leader, for instance. So we have ways of recognizing patterns that aren't there, and people that believe in conspiracy theories find patterns in signals in the news or whatever, and put together pictures very quickly, sometimes based on suggestion and maybe an authority figure like a president telling them that it's so. And they find patterns that really aren't there. And that word is apophenia, and that's a flaw, a disorder in the human brain and the human way of recognizing things that sees things that are not there. So let's take a look at how this might work. I bought this curved knife in Nepal in 1981, and I could tell a story about it. It's used for cutting vegetables and clearing brush and all that kind of thing. And there's these smaller blades in there to help clean this blade once you've used it. And it's part of the structure of this knife. And it's very interesting, isn't it? But if I took this out and I did this, your brain is going to set up a whole different pattern recognition about what this knife is about. You don't care whether it's from Nepal. You're caring about something else. So the same image can be used to change the way your brain works. And advertisers can use this, as well as cult leaders, to shift the way you perceive something by how they present something. I'm presenting here with this black shirt with a white collar. You can recognize the pattern of a priest or a cleric just by my costume, but I am not one. So again, there's this ability in the brain to put together images in front of it to make sense of the world based on our cultural conditioning and maybe our personal interests. So, if I want to sell something, I'm not going to tell a boring story about this knife and where it came from and how to use it. I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to get your attention by doing something with it that maybe shocks you or impresses you. And then I'm going to tell you a story about something that I want to sell. Well, it works. It's worked in advertising. It works to sell drugs. These things keep you alive. We all have kind of a dread of death. So the drug will keep you alive longer, and it makes it more attractive. Cult leaders might convince you that the patterns around us, all of the wars and earthquakes and pandemic or whatever, is a sign of the end times. And they'll quote from the book of Revelation or some other scripture, and you'll put the pattern together in your head, and it makes sense, and it reaches your gut, because now it's about living and dying, it's about surviving, it's about salvation, it's about mysterious things that you want to have some kind of grasp on, some kind of control over. And some people will buy into the cult leaders' description and insistence that these are the end times. Can't you see the pattern? That is a turtle bug. So I just wanted to bring this up. I think if you really want to study this topic, I suggest reading this book or a book similar to it that will give you an idea of how our brains can fool us and why they function the way they do, and how cult leaders can manipulate us to think differently than we think we are thinking. Another one is by Thomas Gilovich. It's How We Know What Isn't So, The Fallibility of Human Reason in Everyday Life. It's a good read. Another one that I recommend is Age of Propaganda by Aronson and Pratt Canis. And again, the title is The Everyday Use and Abuse of Persuasion. It's an excellent book. And maybe the last one for you that are more scientifically inclined, by Schick and Vaughn. It's How to Think About Weird Things. It's probably one of the better books I've read and recommended to people that are coming out of cults that twist reality and make you believe myths that maybe aren't real, or misuse myths to guide your life according to their wishes. So its subtitle is Critical Thinking for a New Age. So anyway, you have to be careful how your brain picks up information and puts together patterns very quickly. The advice in her book, and she explains how it works, is to stop and think. It's to use this prefrontal cortex, which is the manager of information, what goes in, what comes out, how to moderate what you feel emotionally. It takes a little time, it takes effort, it can be painful, because you might have to change your mind about what you think is real and true. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. Some things to think about. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your day.